Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 5, text number 22. And also it's Lord Balaram's appearance day today. So we'll also just speak briefly about Lord Balaram. And probably tonight he'll speak more. Swara Brahmani Nirbhata Swara Brahmani Nirvata Rishikesha Padambuje Rishikesha Padambuje Akandam Chitam Aveshya Akandam Chitam Aveshya Lokan Anucharan Munihi Lokan Anucharan Munihi Sarva Brahmani Nirbhata Rishikesha Padambuje Akandam Chitam Aveshya Lokan Anucharan Munihi Svara Brahmani Nirbhata Rishikesha Padambuje Akandam Chitam Aveshya Lokan Anucharan Munihi. Anybody like to try? Nirbhata Rishikesha Padambuje Ahandam Chitam Aveshya Lokan Anucharan Munihi. Just see if I left my notebook in the car. Nam Chitam Aveshya Anucharan Munihi. What is this? The Brahmani Nirbhata Akandam Chitam Aveshya Lokan Anucharan Munihi. Sarva Brahmani Nirbhata Rishikesha Padambuje Akandam Chitam Aveshya Lokan Anucharan Munihi. Sarva Brahmani in spiritual sound. Nirbhata placing clearly before the mind. Rishikesha of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, the master of the senses. Padambuje, the lotus feet. Akandam, unbroken. Chitam, consciousness. Aveshya, engaging. Lokan, all the planetary systems. Anucharat, travelled around. Munihi, the great sage Narada Muni. Translation. 7 musical notes, sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, are used in musical instruments, but originally they come from the Samaveda. The great sage Narada vibrates sounds describing the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. By such transcendental vibrations, such as Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He fixes his mind at the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus he directly perceives Rishikesha, the master of the senses. After delivering the Haryashvas, Narada Muni continued traveling throughout the planetary systems, his mind always fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. In response, please. The 7 musical notes, Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Da, Ni, are used in musical instruments. But originally they come from the Samaveda. The great sage Narad vibrates sounds describing the pastimes of the Lord. But such transcendental vibrations such as Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He fixes his mind at the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus, he directly perceives Rishikesha, the master of the senses. After delivering the Haryashvas, Narada Muni continued traveling throughout the planetary systems. His mind always fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The goodness of the great sage Narada Muni is described herewith. He always chants about the pastimes of the Lord and delivers the fallen souls back to Godhead. In this regard, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung, Narada Muni Bhaya Vina Radhika Ramana Name Nama Amani Udita Haya Bhakata Jita Same Amiya Dara Virishagana Shravana Hugala Jia Bhakata Jana Sagane Nache Bariya Apana Hiya Madhurapura Asabat Vase Matayam Jagata Jane Kehave Kande Kehave Nache Kehamate Mane Mane Panchavadana Narada Dare Premara Sagana Rola Kamalasana Nichaya Bale Balo Bala Hari Bale Sahasranana Paramasuke Hari Hari Bali Gaya Nama Prabhave Matila Vishva Nama Rasa Sabe Paya Sri Krishna Nama Rasanaspuri Pura Amara Asha Sri Rupa Padi Yache Ha Bhakata Vidara Dase. The purport of this song is that Narada Muni, the great soul, plays stringed instruments called a veena, vibrating the sound Radhika Raman, which is another name for Krishna. As soon as he strokes the strings of the devotees, all the devotees begin responding by making a very beautiful vibration. Accompanied by the stringed instrument, the singing seems like a shower of nectar, and all the devotees dance in ecstasy to the fullest extent of their satisfaction. While dancing, they appear madly intoxicated with ecstasy, as if drinking the beverage called Madhuri Pura. Some of them cry, some of them dance, and some of them, although unable to dance publicly, dance within their hearts. Lord Shiva embraces Narada Muni and begins talking in an ecstatic voice, and seeing Lord Shiva's dancing with Narad, Lord Brahma also joins, saying, all of you kindly chant Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. The king of heaven, Indra, also gradually joins the great satisfaction, with great satisfaction, and begins dancing and chanting Hari Bol, Hari Bol. In this way, by the influence of the transcendental vibration of the holy name of God, the whole universe becomes ecstatic. Bhaktivinoda says, when the universe becomes ecstatic, my desire is satisfied. I therefore pray unto the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami that this chanting of Harinam may go on nicely like this. Lord Brahma is the guru of Narada Muni, who is the guru of Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva is the guru of Madhavacharya. Thus, the Gaudiya Madhava Sampradaya is in the disciplic succession from Narada Muni. The members of this disciplic succession, in other words, the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, should follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni by chanting the transcendental vibration Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. They should go everywhere to deliver the fallen souls by vibrating the Hare Krishna mantra and the instruction of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. That will please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can spiritually advance if one actually follows the instructions of Narada Muni. If one pleases Narada Muni, then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishikesh, is also pleased. Yashat Prasadat Bhagavat Prasadat. The immediate spiritual master is a representative of Narada Muni. There is no difference between the instructions of Narada Muni and those of the present spiritual master. Both Narada Muni and the present spiritual master speak the same teachings of Krishna, who says in Bhagavad Gita, Man mana bhavamad bhakto, man yajimam namaskaru, mami vaishasi satyam te, prajijane priyosime, sarvadharma prityaja, mam ekam sharanam vraja, am tvam sarva pabebhyo, mokshayisme ma shushaha. Always think of me and become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage to me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastatya Deshatadine. No, look. So, in the previous verse, we were glorifying that the Haryashvas that took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by, Narada's instructions. So in this particular verse, we're hearing about, the qualities of Narada, what he actually does to convince people. Before he was actually preaching, the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. And now it's explaining that the other process of Shravanam is to hear, chant and hear the holy name. And in this particular song, Narada Muni is actually describing the effect of chanting the holy name. So, the holy name is Namo Chintamani Krishnas, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, Shuddha Nitya Mukta Nitya Mukta Binatvam Nami Namino. So this means that, it's full of all spiritual qualities. We hear about in this verse how the devotees who are chanting are feeling ecstasy. And so this is because the holy name is not a material sound vibration. What we feel in this material world is actually, Prabhupada says, it's real. We feel pleasure. It's not that it's something, but it's actually a dim reflection. It's limited, and it's what they call stunted. Is that right? Is that the right word? Stunted. It's not going to its full potential. Of course, the holy name has unlimited potential, but so Namo Chintamani Krishnas, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. It's a form of it's a form of the holy name of the Lord, and the four qualities. It's Nitya, it gives one eternity. Mukta, it liberates. Shuddha, it's pure. And what's the last one? Anybody remember? Nitya, Mukta, Shuddha. What? And it's Purna, it's complete. It doesn't need anything else. So everything's in the holy name. The holy name is non-different from Krishna. They call it Nam Prabhu. And it says that, Binatvam Nami Namino. There's no difference between Krishna and the holy name. I remember there was one devotee, he was an associate of Dr. Fakir Mohan, yeah. He used to visit the United Kingdom. And when he gave class, a really qualified devotee, all he gave class on was the holy name. But his classes were so important that, I always felt after his class, I better get into chanting. Because he actually had some realization. He was a lifelong devotee and close associate of Gaur Govinda Maharaj. And actually, when Gaur Govinda Maharaj used to give class, he used to, has anybody heard his classes or been in his classes? You what did he used to do halfway through several times during the class? He used to pick his cartels up and start chanting the holy name. Then he'd stop again, and everybody would sit down, and he'd start talking. And the one devotee in Manchester, actually, when he visited, he started to take shelter of him, and he was having a bit of trouble, with his mind and senses. And Gaur Govinda Maharaj says, you go out on Sankirtan like you are doing, and then halfway through the day, you just stop and you chant Hare Krishna for half an hour. It's even if you're on your own. So, he says, full faith. So, we were saying about the holy name, Namo Chintamani Krishnas, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. Let me just have a read through this again. So what's that verse? There's a verse, the Lord is known as Sri Kalagyan. In other words, he appears in 3 ages. But in this age, he appears as Lord Chaitanya. That's what we externally see, but he actually appears as the holy name. Because Lord Chaitanya, he does not advocate that he's a supreme personality of Godhead. Therefore, it's called a Chana avatar. So in this age, it's called, what's that verse? Krishnanam Vinahain, Kali Klaranam, Krishnanam Sankirtan. In the age of Kali, the Supreme Lord appears in his holy name. And this was just like, Narada Muni is actually preaching by his chanting. So Lord Chaitanya is also teaching us the same process. When Lord Chaitanya, he left Jagannath Puri when he took sannyas, and he took one servant with him, but he travelled through South India. And the process of explaining the Chaitanya Chaitamrita is that he would go to a village, he would chant in the association of, the villagers, and just by his chanting, they would become pure devotees. And then they would go to, another village. When they visited another village, in fact, they said just by looking at him, they became pure devotees. And when they would go to another village, they'd start chanting, and those people would become devotees. Of course, you may not find that in Glasgow. Maybe, South India's different. South India's... If you sit there in Glasgow and looked at people and say, "What are you looking at?" Something like that. Yes, so this was the process of Lord Chaitanya to go throughout the southern part of India, just chanting. And, he only left 8 verses. What are those 8 verses? Shikshastikam. And the first 3 verses out of the whole 8 verses are all about the chanting of the holy name. And, actually later on it says that, feeling ecstasy while chanting. So 4 verses are about the chanting of the holy name. So this is the importance. When Lord Chaitanya was asked by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya asked him, of all the processes, I mentioned this yesterday actually, which is the most important, and he immediately said chanting the holy name. And so this is the most important way that we actually preach. Everything else is to bring us to actually get a person to chant. If we get a person to start chanting, then we see a rapid change in his progress. Until that time, it's all, it's all in the mind. And at any moment, the mind can reject it. So when we start chanting, the mind becomes purified, and it's then we can actually work at that. I remember when I was visiting one devotee. Well, they weren't a devotee actually. I used to visit the Indians. It was in the mid to late 90s. I don't know whether you remember here. I think Kunavan kept devotees longer than Manchester. I remember we started making devotees, and then we got, probably 8 brahmacharis. And then by 1994, we didn't have any. And I thought it was me. I thought nobody could actually live with me. I thought, listen. But then I realized it was happening in other places. And so then I thought, well, we've got to actually maintain. So the best thing is to visit the Indians. So I used to go to the electoral register and look for the, mysteries, Patels, and, Guptas, and, write them down. Then I used to go to the door, knock on the door. They used to open the door. Hare Krishna, Mr. Gupta. They were really surprised. But I used to get invited in, and gradually, we made some members, and it helped us support the temple. But, it wasn't actually, I didn't feel really satisfied doing that service. And eventually, I let it drop. So where I really felt satisfied in is chanting the holy name. And that's what, when I was in Manchester, that's what I missed. I didn't have the association of having, I sometimes have some kirtans on my own, but it's not the same, is it, And gradually, it became difficult. And so I realized that this chanting is the most important thing, chanting in an association of devotees. Namo Chintamani, Namo Chintamani. No, that's the wrong one. Namno hi yavati shakti. This is not in Prabhupada books. Papam ne harane hare. Tavat kartam na shaknoti patakam pataki naraha. And so this is a verse from the Puranas, and it explains that if we once chant the holy name of the Lord, He can free us from more sins than we're able to commit. And so I was thinking about that, and then it says, but the nice verse in the prayers of Queen Kunti, which actually qualifies this. It says, Janmai Aishvarya Shruta Shribir. So Janma means high birth. Aishvarya means birth in a rich family, a rich person. Janma Aishvarya Shruta Shribir. Shruta means a learned person. And what a Shribir means? Shribir means a beautiful person. So these things are actually opulences that people are attracted to in this world. These are the four main opulences. If you think about it, people who are actually famous for four reasons. They're either very beautiful, film stars, they're very rich, they're born in a high family, king or queen. What was the last one? And they're famous, naturally famous. So it says that in this material world, if we have these things, they'll actually, I was asked by Javat about this same point on the first day, I think. So if we have these things, then it's very difficult to chant the holy name. He says, so therefore, if Krishna is merciful, He'll gradually take them away. And what's that verse in the... there's a verse in the Chaitanya Chaitamrita. I can't remember how it goes in Bengali, but it explains that when Krishna especially favors somebody, He gradually takes away all his opulence, all his wealth. And then, the friends and relatives, they all actually desert that devotee. And then he has only one shelter. So, is everybody ready for that? So, but Krishna, in this movement, it's not like that. I mean, Prabhupada, he actually, I'll come back to Prabhupada in a minute. In this movement, it's Yukta Vairagya. So Yukta Vairagya means that if we actually use everything in Krishna's service, that's real renunciation. Anasaktasya vishayam yataram upayanjitaha. When we see something in relationship with Krishna and we use it, this is Yukta Vairagya. Prapanchikataya buddhaya hare sambandha vasana. Namokshabir parichago vairagyam falgu katite, falgu vairagya. When we don't use a thing in Krishna's service. So just by nature of the way we're trained, we don't have to go through that austerity. But strangely enough, Prabhupada, he was, he was a devotee more or less from birth. His father trained him. And then, he used to worship the deities. And eventually he started going to college and he got working and he didn't worship the deities so much then. But he still had that devotional outlook, and eventually he met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he became interested in associating with the Gaudiya Math. and eventually he became initiated. And what's the point now, before I go on to Prabhupada? We're talking about renunciation, that's right. And so then he thought, how can I help the Gaudiya Math? How can, I'm a Grihastha. There's not much I can do like a sannyasi or a brahmachari or, a full-time preacher. So he started to, he held some home programs for some time. But he thought, if I build up my business and make a lot of Lakshmi, then by that Lakshmi I can use it in Krishna's service. And then eventually I can preach. But eventually Prabhupada, he lost everything. His wife minimized him. And, so his servants stole from him. He lost it in so many ways. And then he had nothing else left. Eventually he took Vanaprastha. And he was in Vrindavan, and he read through this verse. And he started laughing, He says, now I understand what it means. And he felt so fortunate that, everything had been taken away. But, in our process, Prabhupada didn't teach us to. Actually, it naturally happens. I remember when I joined the movement, we're diverting a little bit. It's not, but it's related to preaching anyway. I came to a point where I thought, I'm gonna just join the temple. And, I got a house and a job and everything. And I joined the temple and, straight away, within a day, they give me 1 day break, then I went on Sankirtan. But then, after a few months, I went to visit my parents. And as I was walking through Rotherham, I saw this old workmate up a ladder, and he was repairing somebody's, thing, and he recognized me. I said, oh. And I started talking to him, and he says, yeah, they're starting to shut all the pits. So I was thinking, even if I'd have actually carried on, there's, he would have actually ended in the same situation. I would have actually lost. So obviously this is not like Prabhupada, but I saw it that way. I thought, it was very encouraging that I'd made that choice. I wasn't doubtful actually, but it also just reinforced the decision I'd made. And so now chanting the holy name. There's some nice verses about the holy name actually. What's that? Namo Nityasiddha Krishna Prema Sajjakabanai Sarvanari Suracheta Karya Adai. What's that one? You know.
Love for Krishna is eternal.
What?
Love for Krishna is eternally within the consciousness of each and every living entity. It needs reviving by regular hearing and chanting.
Yeah. Nityasiddha Krishna Prema. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That pure love for God is already in the heart, and it's awakened by the purification of the heart. It's not that we have to actually go anywhere else. We just have to follow the process. Here, it's really emphasizing chanting. And I was talking about when I used to visit door to door, and I got onto actually visiting the Indians. And I went to one Indian in Oldham. And, Oldham's not a very upmarket place, but it was actually a Bengali. And he invited me in. And, all the street nearly invited me in, actually. There were a lot of Bengalis in that street. And we used to have kirtans together, but he invited me in, and eventually, he bought a set of Bhagavatams. And every time I used to go and see him, he was actually working his way through them. And he got, I said, and every time I said, are you chanting? He said, no, I just want to read. I said, all right, it's okay, that's good. I thought reading's chanting as well, And then after I visited him a few times, I asked him, how's the reading going? He said, oh, I got fed up of it. I stopped reading. And then I could understand that, if he'd have been chanting, he would have had that, enthusiasm to read. He would have had a spiritual, his mind would have been more controlled and focused, and he would have the spiritual strength to actually, regulate his reading, and he would have carried on. So, the books are there to give us the intelligence, but the Maha Mantra is there for the strength. So, anyway, it's past now, so I'll just speak a little bit about Lord Balaram for the last part of this. So Lord Balaram, he says, beyond this material world is the spiritual, or paravyoma, they call it. And the paravyoma is split into different sections. There's the topmost is called Goloka Vrindavan. And in that planet, there's Goloka Vrindavan, there's Mathura, there's Dwarka, and Ayodhya. But the highest place in that abode is called Shvetadweep. And it says Shvetadweep is non-different from Vrindavan. So in Vrindavan, that's where Krishna resides, the Swayam Bhagavan, the original Krishna. And it explains how, Krishna's first expansion is Lord Balaram, or Shankashan. And from that Shankashan, the whole spiritual world is maintained. That's the first Shankashan. And then from that Shankashan, or from Balaram, comes a first quadruple expansion. And in that quadruple expansion of Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, and Vasudeva and Shankashan, in that quadruple expansion, that Shankashan is maintaining the whole spiritual world. And then from that Shankashan comes the Narayan expansion, the 400 Vishnu, and he resides in Vaikuntha. And all these different Narayans, they reside on different planets. And on that planet of Narayan, there's another expansion of quadruple expansion. Same Vasudeva, Shankashan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. And then, so that from that Shankashan, we get the material world, how he supports the material world, because it says below these Vaikuntha planets is the Karana Samudra, the causal ocean. And beyond the causal ocean is Mahavishnu. It says the causal ocean, it's not actually touching the material realm, it's separate. But, Lord Vishnu touches the material nature through Lord Shiva. So, Mahavishnu, he actually, it says from his body comes an effulgence, and the universe has come from his body, and they form the material world, or this is called the Pradhan. And then from the Pradhan comes Maya, and from Pradhan comes the Mahatattva, and from the Mahatattva, when Mahavishnu has to glance, and he impregnates the living entities, and the time factor, which stimulates everything into. So that's how the second quadruple Shankashan works to maintain the material world. And all these expansions are coming from Balaram. Even Mahavishnu, he expands into the universe as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. And Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, Mahavishnu, they're all lying on what? An Antashesh. That's Balaram. So they're all expansions of Balaram. So Balaram is actually supporting the whole material creation and spiritual creation. So Bala means strength. This is not physical strength, but spiritual strength. And so, Balaram, therefore, is the non-different from Lord Nityananda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nayanya. Balaram Hailo Nitai. Balaram is Nityananda. It's not that, Nityananda expands from Balaram. He is Balaram. But he has a different pastimes as with Lord Chaitanya. And it says, so the original spiritual master is Nityananda. We just heard here how, Narada Muni is the spiritual master also. So Nityananda, so if we want spiritual strength, this is the day to actually pray for it. And there's so much spiritual strength available. He's the one who's giving us the strength to actually combat Maya. If we have any trouble with Maya, pray to Lord Balaram. And, we can get the ability to take shelter of Lord Krishna, because we take shelter of Lord Krishna through Lord Balaram. So there's a picture of Radha and Krishna, of Balaram and Krishna. You've seen that picture, it was a manna. I don't know whether it's still there, actually. I haven't noticed it. Has anybody seen that picture where it was leaning on who? There's one leaning on the other. It's like Lord Balaram is leaning on Krishna, I think. Is that right? Yeah. So Lord Balaram is actually, the elder brother, and it's supposed to be the strongest. Actually, because we sometimes say who's the strongest, and so he's leaning on Krishna. So many pastimes of Lord Balaram, maybe we can hear them tonight. But this is a brief, introduction into the tattva of Lord Balaram. How Balaram actually is sustaining everything. And the other quality is that he's the elder brother, and he's the Supreme Personality of God in himself. But his function is service. So this is actually a good lesson for ourselves, is that even though he's actually the master of everybody else except Krishna, he's still actually got the service mood towards Krishna. He's supplying everything for Krishna's pleasure. And even when Krishna appears in this material world through the womb of Devaki, Balaram appears first specifically to actually make a nice situation for Krishna to appear. So, in other words, we're a movement of Das, Dasana, Das. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, what's that verse? Gopi Bhatu Kamalaya Das, Dasana, Das. So whatever position we take in devotional service, there's all, in order to maintain that position properly, we have to see that it's a position to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because that's our natural function anyway, we can't do anything else. Prabhupada writes in the beginning of Nectar of Devotion that A serves B, B serves C. In the material world, everybody's serving, whether lower or higher. And so this principle is coming from the spiritual world. This is our natural function. And so somehow or other, it's not easy, but we have to maintain that attitude that actually I'm trying to serve. Okay, we can stop there. And if there's any questions, we can have a few quick questions, or we can... Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.
His Holiness Dayananda Swami ki jai.